Okay, folks, let's go ahead and let's get this one on the road. I'm expecting a pretty sparse crowd tonight, which is actually kind of ideal because I want to talk about some stuff that I think is possibly touchy for some people. Possibly touchy. And what I mean by possibly touchy is that, I don't want to offend anyone because I might say some things that are negative about fandom and fans and things like that. Mostly I wanted to put up a couple of thesis ideas and just kind of get some feedback from the people who are showing up the day before Thanksgiving to chat with me, and maybe get an idea of just where I'm at and the right way to say certain things. So a little bit before I go, check the link right there. It's pre-order for my newest book. It's called Eyes in the Walls. It's a straight horror book. Very interesting, or psychological horror, I should really say. I had a very interesting time writing it, and I'm pretty proud of this product. I think a lot of people will enjoy what it's delivering. It goes very quickly. It's, again, about a little bit over 30,000 word book. So about maybe 2 hours, 3 hours to read it, which is a good amount of time. So please do check that out and consider pre-ordering it. Also, if you've been following me on other social media, I also have another little thing I'm going to come out with in the next couple of days. It does not include Eyes in the Wall, but it's just a huge anthology. Let me see if I can bring up the silly cover for you guys. So basically, I created this huge, gigantic book with all of my books in it. Let me see if I could. Here we go. This is what it looks like. Okay. So, Fantasy Christmas Spectacular 2019. It has 10 of my books in it. It's deceptively packed. And I did a couple of things to try to make this paperback volume, and you can buy the ebook as well, really, really affordable. So it's on the biggest cut you can make on print on demand, which is A4. So 8.5 by 11, a little bit taller and very slightly narrower than that, which is a lot of space. And when you're filling up that much space with text and you want to make the text small, you have to do it in columns. So it's 2 columns for, I think, 570 pages. I managed to get it down really thin to 570 pages. In those 570 pages, there's 600,000 words, which is pretty packed. So there's a ton of content in this. It's got Water of Awakening, the entire Needle Ash saga, all 3 books of that. It's got Crown of Sight, Garamesh. It's got the new book, City of Silver, which came out November 1st. If you haven't bought that one yet, it's in this collection. I don't know what the price point is going to be. I have to figure that out once I figure out how expensive the paperback's going to be. But basically, you'll get every book. So if you've been waiting to get books of mine, you can get all of my books for one low price. It will only run through December. So it'll start hopefully on Friday, Black Friday, and it'll be gone like January 2nd. It'll go forever. So you can only get this deal for about a month, and then it's going to go away forever. Same thing with the paperback. After December, you could only get the paperback on eBay, and that's kind of how I want it to be. So it is strictly limited collector's edition, limited, that is, to the number of copies that I can sell within the time frame of December. So you can look forward to that if you've been thinking about how do I get, what book do I start with? Well, you could buy them all and start with any of the books. It has all of them in there. What's not in there is a lot of my short stories because I just didn't have time to kind of collect them, and because I haven't published them as a separate book before, that just was going to take too much time to cram in the little short stories. So instead of that, you're getting this gigantic tome of all the other books. So please check that out and consider buying it. Make sure you're on my mailing list, dvspress.com/list, to grab that. Now, here's going to be my thesis on fandom. Actually, before I get to my thesis, I'm going to just check chat real quick, see if there's anything going on. Let's see here. I'll get to some of this stuff after I talk about what I'm doing, or what I want to say about fandom. Okay, so today's topic is fandom and fans. And so my basic thesis is, and I've talked about fans before in numerous different angles and different different videos. Let me start with a little bit of an experience. So back in 2015, actually, I went and saw The Force Awakens, and it was a very, very disappointing experience. I had really been expecting, I tried not to buy into the hype, but I'd been really expecting a good Star Wars movie, and what I got was the worst Star Wars movie ever made. It was so bad, in fact, that days afterwards, it just kept making me angrier. So a lot of people experienced this with Last Jedi and didn't experience it with Force Awakens. But Force Awakens was a deeply upsetting film. It was a very, very bad movie. It was one of the worst movies I've seen in terms of originality, execution. Obviously, the visuals looked okay, but the story was one of the worst stories I'd ever seen put on film. It made me upset. So I made a video on it. That video went kind of viral, got me a lot of attention. But more than attention, it got me scores of, it got me death threats. It got me endless harassment online for months on end. It was really kind of hellish what happened as far as the way I was used to interacting with social media and what happened after I came out with that Force Awakens video. So in a bunch of ways, it blessed me because it did a couple things for me. So first of all, it got my channel to the initial seeds that it needed to have to really grow. So it got me like my first 4,000 or 5,000 subscribers, which I was able to grow now to almost 40,000, which is a substantial number. I mean, it's really hard to grow a channel to 40,000, especially if you're not, especially if you do things as eclectic as I do, and you just kind of approach it the way I do, which is like whatever I want to do, I do. But I was really thankful for it that way. I met a ton of awesome people that were started with the same mindset as me and turned out they were a lot like me. They were, and that's probably some of you, they were a lot like me in terms of the way that we thought, in terms of the things we liked. We had lots of great conversations. But at the same time, there was thousands of people who hated me for saying that The Force Awakens sucks. And I realized this is one of the defenses, is that I'm like, they hate me because I'm basically telling the truth. They don't really have a defense against what they're saying, and their defenses are all so thin. It was so easy to argue against them, and at the same time, it also, the other blessing is it really built up my resistance to hatred online, to just receiving endless negativity. And if you've never been like the focus of intense negativity for a long time, let me tell you, it's very different to be on the receiving end of it than the giving end of it. And a lot of people who run if you have an anonymous username on Twitter, let's say, and you like to try to throw hot takes and respond to people on Twitter, you probably don't know what it's like to look at your mentions and have 1,000 people telling you to kill yourself or something like that. And I did get actual death threats during that time too. I had people say that they would kill me. They'd find me and kill me if I didn't take the review down. So that definitely created an experience and a color to me that had a big lasting impact on me. And I made a couple of videos about fanboy hate, about psychic identity with fandom. I researched some articles. There's been some psychological research into the psychic connection people have with being a fan of something. And the one that they tested was Harry Potter, and they found that people suffered, big negative feelings if they were told that they were wrong about some lore detail of the Harry Potter universe. And I could tell you that amplification is even stronger with Star Wars. So that definitely had a big impact on me and made me really, I came out with a video that says stop being a fan of anything. You should stop being a fan of things. You should stop being committed to franchises. It's not good for you. You are missing out on good things. You are going to be constantly throwing your money down a pit and not be satisfied. And I've been completely proven right by that, because we came out with, Last Jedi, and there was a whole bunch of fans that liked Force Awakens, and then they woke up with Last Jedi and they hated Last Jedi. And I meet so many people that are like, I liked Force Awakens, but I hated Last Jedi. And I'm like, if I go by the numbers, and I might do a numbers breakdown, if I go by the numbers and I actually sit down and actually evaluate each of them, The Last Jedi is technically a better movie than The Force Awakens. It's better in terms of production. It's a better story, actually. Even though it's a bad story, it's a better story than Force Awakens. But fans really hated it because of how disrespectful it was to fans. It was a hate letter to fans. It was basically, there was a lot of messaging in there that you're really stupid and bad for liking Star Wars. So the fans obviously responded to that and started getting on my side of things, which is that Disney Star Wars sucks. Every movie they've come out with has been bad on some level. The best one has been Solo. Solo was a mediocre Star Wars movie, maybe a slightly, I would actually call it maybe a good sci-fi film if it wasn't Star Wars. If it wasn't Star Wars, I think it would have been a lot better liked, but because it was coming after Last Jedi, it just really didn't have a chance of being liked at all. It was like a fan film like the others. Lots of winking towards the fans. There's lots of little things that were just included to say, hey, remember this from the movies that you like, that you actually really like, things like that. So, and that includes The Mandalorian. And so one of the things I realized the last week or two, people who hated The Last Jedi were basically completely forgiving of everything once The Mandalorian came out. And the way that I know that they're completely forgiving is not that they say, they say that Disney's now doing a good job. Why can't Jon Favreau be in charge of this? Blah, 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 blah. But they're watching it. So they haven't really disconnected. They haven't really stopped being fans of Star Wars. And that upset me a little bit when I was seeing all that. I was very disappointed in how quickly people were willing to just get their Disney Plus subscription and watch a Star Wars TV show and like and enjoy a very mediocre to bad TV show. And it's not a very good show as far as story goes. Visually, you might like it. It definitely has Star Wars aesthetics, but the story, there's no story so far. There's really no story. It's 3 episodes of basically nothing. There's not even really exposition in it. And I'll do more videos just more specifically on it. But it kind of made me wake up and rethink what I was expecting of fans, because part of my problem is a flawed theory of mind. Flawed theory of mind really is very common, and I'm not immune from it. In fact, I'm a victim of it. When we create a theory of mind is the idea that other people have thoughts and emotions and feelings and beliefs. And also once you get past being a toddler, you know that the thoughts, feelings, and emotions other people have may be different from yours. However, we always base our theory of mind on ourselves. Ourselves is always the beginning of it. So when we're empathizing, we're putting ourselves in somebody else's place, and we're thinking about how they would feel, how they feel, because we would feel if we were in their place, we would feel this way, right? And so that's a lot of our theory of mind. And so my flawed theory of mind was assuming that a large portion of the fandom was thinking in the way that I would think if I had been a fan, which I was a fan. And that was a flaw, because other people have different thoughts and emotions and different experiences and different relationships with it than you do. So it was a problem with me thinking that fans were going to have a different attitude than what they actually were going to have. And so my thesis is fans just want to have fun. Fans, as much as people at Disney and people like Rian Johnson may get upset that the fans are crapping on them, fans just want to have fun, and they will readily accept something that is average to mediocre to bad, as long as it doesn't insult them and gives them some of the things which they like about the thing that they're a fan of. So The Mandalorian, I just think is a great example. It looks like Star Wars. It has the Star Wars aesthetics. It doesn't have Star Wars cinematography or music, but it has the visual appeal of Star Wars. It has some of the attitude of Star Wars. It has, puppets that are very Star Wars. It has a lot of things that the people who like Star Wars, especially the people who like the original trilogy, and it's very, very clear to me that Disney is pursuing indifference to the prequel trilogy, people who like the original trilogy from the 80s, from the 70s and 80s. So it delivers enough of the things that they like that they're going to like the show. So me sitting there and evaluating how there's, it's not well done, this thing or that thing isn't well, that doesn't really matter that much. What matters is that you're fulfilling the promises of the brand. And so I think for a lot of fans, Mandalorian is fulfilling the promises of the brand. Fans just want to have fun. I think it's the same thing with Star Trek. I think Star Trek fans who are very honorary, Star Trek fans have been the original honorary, like hardcore fan base. They're very honorary about, like when Enterprise came out, they were upset it wasn't called Star Trek Enterprise, and they actually renamed it Star Trek Enterprise. They didn't like the intro song. They replaced it, Star Trek fans can be very honorary, but Star Trek fans will continue for a long time to buy and invest in Star Trek products as long as they feel like there's some part of it that is Star Trek to them. Even like Star Trek Discovery, which I haven't watched a single episode of Star Trek Discovery, and I'm a big Trek fan. So that should say something to you about my ability to disengage from a brand that I've been a fan of. I wouldn't talk about Star Wars or watch it if it wasn't for people just wanting to have conversations with me about Star Wars. That's it. I was done with the brand after Force Awakens came out. So that's basically my thesis. I want to kind of get some input from y'all on it. Fans just want to have fun. And I'm going to say the next step from that is once you have that model of how fans really think and act, a bunch of the things that I was telling fans to do and that other people are telling fans to do or expecting them to do, that's even worse. You have to conform your expectations to reality, not the other way around. You can't conform reality to your expectations. It doesn't work. It's never going to work. So one of the things I was saying is like you got to stop being a fan of things. You got to get rid of that. For people who have a psychic identity that's attached to Star Wars, it's like asking them to stop being Irish or something. That doesn't make any sense. That's a ridiculous thing to tell somebody. That's a stupid thing to tell them. It's also not realistic to expect them to disengage from the brand and buy other brands. Now, they may, but only if that's something that interests them for its own sake. So if you're making something that's like Star Wars, that's a replacement for Star Wars fans, they're probably not going to like it because it's not Star Wars. It doesn't contain the things which they like about Star Wars. If you make another sci-fi thing that makes them feel differently from Star Wars, but also good, that's how you would actually attract them. And you can market using Star Wars and things like that. There's lots of ways to do it, but the belief that you can create like a replacement franchise or something is just not, I don't think it's a way forward. There's an idea, and I'll just introduce it here. It's called Brand Zero. I've been talking with a lot of other authors about it. The idea of Brand Zero is you give no attention to the brand, to like Star Wars. You starve it for attention. So you don't talk about Star Wars because attention is money. If I'm talking about Star Wars, I'm basically marketing for Disney. Like right now, even now I'm marketing for Disney because I'm putting the idea of Star Wars in your mind. Just by me talking about it, you might consider going to see the movie even if you were opposed to it. So I'm actually giving value to Disney merely by talking about it. So with Brand Zero, you starve it. But I don't think Brand Zero is an adequate solution to actual fans. Fans, it's just not going to affect them. They are going to keep their nose smelling for new Star Wars content or new Star Trek content or whatever their fandom at. Warhammer 40K has a very strong fandom. They're going to monitor that, and they're going to jump on it whenever there's something that, even if it moves just like Mandalorian moved slightly towards the better end of production and attention to detail with Star Wars. And it actually is lore breaking in multiple ways. I'll talk about that in other videos. We don't need to talk about that here. Just having a little bit over there that it doesn't insult you. It doesn't say you're bad for liking Star Wars. Star Wars fans like it. And they're going to watch it. They're going to give it their attention, and they'll buy Mandalorian toys, and they'll buy back into the franchise because that's part of their identity. Okay. That's part of who they are. Now, I can arrive at this conclusion through the theory of mind relating to myself if I know what I'm actually a fan of. Because there are things that I will continue buying well past my ability to know whether they're bad or good, right? I like to say, hey, when did I stop being a Metallica fan? Well, it was the day Saint Anger came out because it was so bad. It made me lose faith in the band. It's not true because I bought the next album. I bought Death Magnetic, and I listened to Hardwired. I still listen to Hardwired on a streaming service, and even though I didn't think it was very good, I still listened to it. So my love of Metallica from the 90s, from back in the day, I still will end up listening to Metallica. I still listen to their old albums, of course, too. World of Warcraft's a good example. It's like you come back for every expansion just to see what's up. I did that for years. They introduced WoW Classic, and I had to make a break for this, right? They brought back WoW Classic. This is what I wanted. I made content about this for 2 years. I was so excited. I got into it. I had the best time. I was having a great time playing with other people. No, it wasn't like it was. It wasn't as good as it was, but it was still good. It was so much better than retail. Again, it was just like Mandalorian. They moved a little bit back towards what was good. There was a bunch of things that disturbed the experience, blah, blah. But I just looked at Blizzard when they banned a guy for a year and took away his prize money because he said some political thing on a, I guess what they call it, a shoutcast. And then they banned the casters too. They just banned everybody involved, which the people who were broadcasting had nothing to do with it. But anyway, so they did something that was really dickish. And it's like, dude, if I'm not willing to cancel my subscription over a company being bad, what am I doing? I have to be able to sever that cord and say, I'm not a fan of World of Warcraft. I can walk away from it. And I did. I walked away from it and just put all my free time into writing more books. And so it's good. So anyway, that's my thesis. Let's check the comments and see what you guys happen to think about it. It's hard, and it's like if Blizzard came out and apologized and undid everything they did, and then I'd be like, oh, I guess I can re-up now. It just, that it's like a bad relationship with an ex-girlfriend, let's take a look at some of the chat here. You introduced me to Vox Day. Funny that you're on opposite ends about upsetting people. I don't know if we are. Me and Vox Day, that is. I've upset plenty of people. I'm used to getting relentless hate online because I got it for a long time, and I haven't had a lot of it this last year, which has been great. But occasionally I get somebody sprigging out in the comments, and I just boot them. It's it's not worth the time. There's no good interaction there unless I can just completely slam them, make fun of them, and then ban them. I find it interesting when a series grows large enough to have sub-fandoms as extensions of the main basis. Yeah, but not when it's literally only about shipping, because shipping is stupid. Let's see here. Pursuits of a Polymath. Welcome, Jesse. If you ever want to hop on and talk, if you want to hop on and talk about this, let me know. We can figure it out for maybe another new pub talk. Can you articulate why people are all right with Tolkien's retcon of Gollum and the Ring and the Hobbit, but not Lucas's retcon of Star Wars original trilogy? Well, I'm kind of okay with both, but I can objectively say that Lucas's retcons of Star Wars are bad. I mean, I could say that they are less effective and they're not as good as the original. Can I say that about Tolkien's retcon of Gollum? So, I mean, the ring becomes the Ring of Power and not just a birthday present. I think the updated version of The Hobbit's actually better. So, it's just a quality thing. As far as people saying, no, he has to leave it alone. I don't really believe that. I believe creators should have control of their art to update. But I don't like the fact that you can't get the original version. That's a little bit, give people the option would be nice. Did you hear that J.J. Abrams recently mentioned the phrase "the fandom menace" in an interview? I didn't, but I don't pay attention to him at all. I pay zero attention to him or anything Disney puts out. I only pay attention to stuff that I think the fans of my channel actually care about. So I don't look at any interviews. Again, this is something fans do. They keep their nose. They keep an eye on what's there. They never just disengage and say, I'm done with Star Wars, and quit paying attention to it. They're like, oh, did you hear that J.J. Abrams said this? And this is nothing against you, Hardwick, at all, or anyone else that's reading Star Wars news. I don't want, I realize I'm kind of putting out a negative energy with that. It's not what I mean. It's just that's the way fans are. I'll still read articles about Metallica, but I say I'm not a Metallica fan. It's hard, You have a when you're wearing Metallica shirts for 5-10 years of your life, it's kind of hard to say I'm not a Metallica fan anymore. Didn't you cover this a while back with "Don't be a fan of anything"? Yes, I did. I was very disappointed with The Force Awakens. I was somehow able to convince myself it was fine for about a month before accepting I didn't like it. I kind of did that with Episode 1. I saw it like 3 times before I'm like, I don't think I like this movie. And I like it more as an adult, but that's mostly because I've watched it with kids, and Jar Jar doesn't bug me anymore. What about aspect from The Force Awakens make like the fan fiction the most? So the fan fiction part of Force Awakens, there's a bunch. So first of all, Rey is totally a Mary Sue. She is an insert of basically J.J. Abrams. Even though she's female, there's nothing female about her. She's a scrappy person surviving. She gets lifted into the air. She meets Han Solo. Han Solo instantly likes her. So all the interactions between Rey and the older characters, that's exactly what JJ is imagining his child self coming in and talking to Han Solo, and Han Solo likes him, and Han Solo wants to take him in as an apprentice, and Leia hugs him, and Chewie's cool with him, and C-3PO's funny to him, and R2-D2 beeps at him. It's just a fan fantasy. It's just going through the motions. Everybody instantly loves the character. That's a hallmark of fan fiction, is that you're imagining the interactions with the characters that you want. Harry Potter fan fiction might include, you meet Hermione and she instantly is attracted to you and something like that, So it included basically all of those things, Also, just instead of it including any kind of original set pieces, for instance, it instead is just a bunch of rehashed set pieces. You have a Death Star, a desert planet, Millennium Falcon, TIE Fighters, Stormtroopers. It's just a repeat of all the stuff we've seen before. Well, I found you via the Star Wars videos, and now I'm a long-term follower. So it wasn't a loss at all. I don't consider it a loss at all. It's mostly positive, but I still got, it was interesting to experience a lot of focused harassment. If it's anything like working at a call center, I know how you feel about negativity. Yes. So if you work at a call center, it's really hard. It's people like yelling at you all day, every day. It's like, imagine opening up your social media and it's nothing but hate mail for months. That's kind of tough to deal with. But it hardened me up so that stuff wasn't going to get to me as much in the future. I'm not going to say it's like has zero effect on me, but it has. It's like what Jesse said about the beam breakers. If you didn't see his video, you probably didn't, because no one subscribes to Jesse, but you should subscribe to his channel because it was a good video. But basically, beam breakers are people that are committed to tearing down other people and other things. They do nothing that's positive. They are completely focused on the negative part of it. It's kind of like postmodernism. It's all about deconstruction rather than construction. And so if you're deconstructing without constructing, then you are a beam breaker. You're trying to destroy creation. You're trying to destroy what's good. And that was like 80% of the people. Not 80%. I'm going to say long term it was 50% on a couple of those videos. Like, I've never gotten more hate than for that Force Awakens video. Now, Last Jedi was mostly people agreeing with me. But Force Awakens is mostly people thinking I should kill myself for not liking Force Awakens. Or, some variation of that, right? I don't think that reaction would have happened if defenders of the movie didn't feel like you were right. You spoke obvious truths of the film and ran all over them. It was true. That is kind of how that's at least my psyche defense of it. Those grapes were sour anyway. Yeah, I think I was right. Jake Lloyd, young Anakin. Yeah, okay. Ahmed Best also got harassed. Yeah, Ahmed Best said that he considered killing himself. I had heard that. I know Jake Lloyd had schizophrenia. He had major mental problems once he grew up, and part of it, same thing. I know people don't like him, but the guy who played Wesley Crusher, Will Wheaton, he's gotten relentless hate over his character and had to deal with it. So, and you may dislike Will Wheaton as the way he acts online, but you could probably still have a little bit of empathy for like an entire fandom wanting you written off the show and then successfully getting you written off the show. For the remark on people being obsessed with franchises, Isaiah 2:8, their land is also full of idols. They worship the work of their own hands, that which their own fingers have made. That's good. Tolkien said something about that with Fëanor or Fëanor, who made the Silmarils. He loved best that which he had made with his own hands, and it was his downfall, it was his ruin, because he loved the things which he had made with his own hand more than the creation of Iluvatar, more than the world and the people around him. And it became not just the downfall for him, but all his people. So when Tolkien's like, I don't use allegory, it's like, yeah, you do. Rogue One and Solo are better films than the so-called sequel trilogy. Yeah, they are. Well, I don't know about... So Rogue One, I thought was probably worse than Force Awakens when I saw it. Because it was technically worse in a bunch of ways. I'd have to probably rewatch them and come up with an order. I'd probably say my order now, off the top of my head, for the sequels is like Solo or, Disney stuff. Solo is the best, followed by maybe Rogue One. Last Jedi and Force Awakens is probably the worst. But I don't know. I don't know. I felt like Rogue One was really boring and bad, but maybe I'll take another look at it at some point. Why do you think folks are so reluctant to look up obscure but better things, or go more extreme and make their own content? I don't know. I think it's just, it's the default. You like Magic the Gathering, so you continue to keep up. I mean, even I haven't played Magic in years, and I'd still watch like Magic the Gathering videos. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. It's because you have an attachment to it. It's a psychic attachment, would be my guess. And they don't make their own content because not everybody feels like they can do that competently. It's a lot to write a book. It's hard. And it's hard to develop the skills necessary to make a film or write a book or make a game or something. Draw a comic. Let's open a Lord of the Rings themed restaurant and name it Helm's Deep Dish Pizza. I like The Mandalorian because it's like watching someone creating a new story with vintage Kenner action figures. That's a good way of putting it. Does that make for a great story? Not necessarily, but it's the action. The action's pretty good in it. It's pretty well done as far as action goes, but there's no story. And in fact, I think it's actually insulting that they just made a Boba Fett look alike. I felt kind of insulted by that when it wasn't Boba Fett. Just me. You were expecting fans to reject anything made by Disney like a boycott. Yeah, that isn't the stance of most, absolutely. Their stance is to reject any Star Wars product that disrespects them or the canon. So they're going to consume every single product and then get upset that a product disrespects them. The thing is, they're voting with their wallet every time to go see the product. It's not going to have any effect. Talking about Star Wars just makes me sad, as I remember the good old days when Creepy Grandpa was at the helm when we got Episode 3, Clone Wars, and Star Wars Battlefront 2. The original Battlefront 2 was good. Let's see here. Black Cauldron and Escape to Witch Mountain from the 70s are the best Disney sci-fi fantasy movies they did. Both made for children and not fans. And me and my son watched Black Cauldron, and he actually dressed up as the Horned King for Halloween this year. He liked it so much. So he made his own Horned King costume out of we got a cloak, and he got this Viking helmet and put the horns through it, and had a skeleton mask. It was a whole fun thing. So I like Black Cauldron a lot. I like the books probably better. The books are not flawless, but yeah, I do like them. Can this be tied into the conversation? Excuse me. Getting over a little bit of a cold. Can this be tied in the conversation about nostalgia? I believe what we're seeing is a result of the impulse. Yeah, I think nostalgia is part of it. I mean, it's definitely part of it. So, I don't know. I think nostalgia is probably a good... Yeah, I think... See, I think one of the reasons people like this Mandalorian show is that because it looks like Boba Fett, it is cueing into nostalgia. You have a baby Yoda kind of cues into nostalgia. Everything's kind of cueing into nostalgia. You're seeing something you've already seen before, just like a new iteration of it. I think it's actually really lazy, but people like it. Again, that's what fans want. They want the thing that they like, you know. When I first watched Force Awakens, I didn't see all the wiring flaws yet, but I already hated the treatment of the original characters and jettisoning of the Return of the Jedi victory. Yeah, it felt bad. My fandom of John Williams is so strong, I'm willing to forgive his subpar scores like Presumed Innocent and Rosewood. It's okay to admit brands make mistakes and keep liking them. Yeah, not everyone knocks it out of the park every time. I like Hammerfall, but they've come out with a couple subpar albums. Same thing with Motorhead or obviously Metallica. Serious answer. All these franchises are corporate products made by cynical corporate elites, entities for cash. It's unhealthy to incorporate those things into your sense of identity. Cut the cord, lads. That's what Darcy says, and I agree. Film Girl says fandom can't be scary nowadays. Well, some of the people in certain fandoms anyway. I think it's got worse with the rise of social media. Hope you're okay. I'm fine. I'm fine. You get the idea. Internet tough guys don't really scare me. I mean, actual tough guys don't really scare me either. But internet tough guys especially don't scare me. Since the majority of Star Wars fans have already praised The Mandalorian, do you think that the coming Obi-Wan Kenobi series will also be well received? Probably. Because it's going to give people what they want, which is a familiar character they like and the visuals they like. It's going to be more Star Wars. What they want is Star Wars that doesn't insult them. So whoever said, they want to not be insulted. It's true. I don't remember who said it. Sorry, I already forgot who told me that, but I appreciate it. It's actually very, very poignant. They don't want to abandon Star Wars. They want more Star Wars, but they don't want Star Wars that winks at him and says, "You're stupid for liking Star Wars," which is totally what Last Jedi did. So yeah, I think the Obi-Wan Kenobi series will be well received unless it's full of things which are like winking at the fans and saying you're stupid for liking Star Wars. If Obi-Wan was going on rants about how stupid the Force is, or that they're all dumb space wizards with light swords, or like making light of the franchise he's in, like they did with Last Jedi, I think you're going to upset the fans. I think there's a reason a huge portion of the fan base liked Force Awakens and hated Last Jedi. It had everything to do with the attitude Last Jedi had. Force Awakens was like a fan film. It was bad. It was technically terrible, but it didn't approach it. It was in a sense made by a fan in a way, right? There was at least some loving attitude towards what's there, even though it was completely unoriginal and rehashed and without really any artistic merit. At least there was a love of fandom. There was a bit of fandom in it, so people picked up on that and they liked it. Many people suggest that I watch shows while the shows are still going on. I've decided not to waste my time starting a show until it's finished. Game of Thrones is a good example. I like this from Christopher. The last season ruined it. I'd hate to start a show before it's finished, only to find it eventually lowers in quality or gets canceled. That's a great point. I don't watch TV at all. I don't watch shows. I don't like the TV format. I find it really slow, really boring. I don't have time for it. And I see all the problems with TV shows as a format in The Mandalorian. Too slow paced, not enough happens. You don't get on through the exposition. You put off reveals. You leave things on cliffhangers. You do all of these things which are annoying to me. Now I say that, and I like anime series because they have that end. If you go and you watch Death Note, there's two practical ways to watch Death Note. One is to just watch the series and then it's over. Or there's actually like a stopping point when, I don't want to have any spoilers. There's a stopping point. You'll know when the stopping point is, where you can just turn the series off after that. Because that's where the original story kind of ended. But when it's over, it's over. You don't have to go waiting through 3-4 more tacked on seasons of garbage, hoping that it returns to make you feel the same things you felt in the early episodes. So like anime tends to have those limited runs, which I think are great. Nitaku says, I have spent my downtime at work today planning a new book, and now I have a main character, love interest, villain setting, and a plan for acts 1 through 3 for another new book. So thanks, Dave. I appreciate that. I'm glad you're working on a new book. I hope you're able to execute it well. Is a character an active character if their active actions are being manipulated by someone else? I think Han shoots first, but Jabba knew he would and wanted Greedo dead, so he sent him to die. Yeah. Active characters, I mean, there's layers that can happen. A passive character would be someone that, they're walking down the street and they get sucked into the adventure. And then, the wizard's like, you're going on an adventure with me. And then, like, the wizard continues to drag them from set piece to set piece while the protagonist flails his arms about like a Muppet. That's a passive character. The last season, oh yes, where were we? At least you got somewhat inoculated to all that crap. Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting new content from an established brand to be good. If one is willing to reject bad content and realize that it can't ruin the original. How do you reject bad content? This is my point, Hardwick. Someone says, I'm going to wait until I see all of The Mandalorian before I judge it. It's like, okay. Then you're not judging good or bad. You're judging it after the fact. They're still getting your attention. They're still getting your money, right? So rejecting bad content, you haven't rejected it. You've already watched it. So when someone's like, "Hey, we haven't forgiven things. We're just watching The Mandalorian." It's like, if you hadn't actually had the reaction that I thought people would have, then they wouldn't be watching. And it's my problem for thinking that fans would stop consuming Star. Of course they're not. They didn't go to see Solo except maybe one time, or maybe a couple people stayed home. I think Solo was probably a bomb because, remember, movies are part of the spike, not the tail. So if the tail didn't go to the movies, it'd have no effect, or it would have very little effect compared to it just wasn't a movie people wanted to see for whatever reason, including fans. I wonder how the internet will affect our society, especially the young, in terms of either mental illness or just overall outlook. I wonder if it's possible to also build resilience. I think it will. I think there's some research that says that social media causes depression and things like that, especially in young people. So I think it causes problems. As far as resilience, I think we're made a certain way. So if you put poison in the water, maybe you could build up a resistance to poison, but if you put cancer-causing agents in the water, you won't build up a resistance to cancer. You'll just die. I don't think there's probably not a hormesis effect here for online stuff. We're made a certain way, and we don't, like, our genes don't change automatically unless people are dying before they reproduce because of social media. And then those who are resistant to social media will pass on their genes. I caught some hell when I gave my opinion on The Farce Awakens to some acquaintances online. Yeah, totally. They get upset. Stop not liking what I like! Because they have an attachment to it. Speaking of Will Wheaton, do you think that Wesley Crusher is a Gary Stu? He's a prodigy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think he's a Gary Stu. Because the people on the ship don't necessarily like him. Wasn't Wesley Crusher a Gene Roddenberry self-insert? I don't know. He was a gamma male character who ascended to godhood. Did you hear that Disney's Alan Horn has suggested the possibility of editing season 1 of The Mandalorian into a 2-hour movie and releasing it in theaters? I hadn't heard that, but I was considering doing that anyway. Because there's so much you can cut out of the first 3 episodes. You only really have to keep about 15 minutes of the first 3 episodes in order to keep the story intact. You can for sure cut the first half of the first episode, and it would be more than 15 minutes. Let's say 30 minutes of the first 3 episodes. So you could cut 2/3 of it and not lose any story. Episode 2, as an example, could just be cut entirely. It's just a filler episode. Nothing happens, Do you have a reveal of Baby Yoda, like, using the Force, which is lore-breaking and ridiculous, but, it's just, I'm going to leave this planet, but the Jawas broke my ship. So I'm here for an episode. It's stupid. And it's not like he's defending Yoda against some bigger villain, the Baby Yoda species. It's not Yoda. Yoda's dead. Mandalorian is basically a cartoon, Trent says. I don't know about that. But yeah, I could see that. It's like a cartoon. I don't have much hope with the Obi-Wan miniseries. They got Ewan McGregor back, but outside of him, I don't think they'll have enough to get me to watch it. I'm still a Final Fantasy fan, even though they... Whoops. Even though they massively disappointed me. Versus 13 had amazing trailers and teased all these dark themes, and they scrapped when they changed directors. Yeah, Final Fantasy 15 to me was like pretty much unplayable, which was originally Versus 13. The gameplay was kind of okay, but man, I just couldn't stand the aesthetics. I couldn't stand the way it looked. It was dumb. Thanks always for your content. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks for watching. I don't get why people say they can't enjoy the original trilogy after what they saw with Luke Skywalker and The Last Jedi. Not the same character. And I think it's because they view the franchise as a monolithic thing. It's like it's real. So if somebody kills Luke Skywalker in their movie, it's like he's really dead. And that's hurtful. Again, it's this, there's a psychic connection there. There's a love of it that's real. It's kind of like in World of Warcraft, they burned down Darnassus. So it's like Darnassus is destroyed. Darnassus was never real. It's worse than destroyed. It never existed. You know? So Luke Skywalker's worse than dead. He never was. So I don't know. I have no problem like separating those out and just saying, and I've made videos on this and people are like, oh, I feel like a psychic relief looking at things from this perspective. And it's like, it's not canon without George Lucas. So there you go. It's not like real. You're just looking at Disney's corporate version of it. You know, it's their version of it. Why are journalists and the media so reluctant to criticize the ST when they were so eager to mock the prequels? Because the mouse owns it. And so if you get on the wrong side of Disney by criticizing their movies, you'll lose your business. You won't have advanced access to movies, legally at least. You won't have, basically you won't have an ability to write criticisms of their movies. So if you go too far, if you blast Star Wars, you risk losing your business, basically. And then there's another thing too, which is with social media. I know, since I'm going to come out with negative criticisms of The Mandalorian for the next 2 episodes, I'm going to get a lot of pushback. Because people like it. People do not like to hear that what they like is bad. So, if you are sensitive to that, then of course it's much easier to just say everything's good. And then everybody who comes in and doesn't like it, like the Fandom Menace or whatever, you just write them off as crazies. You know, it's easier to defend positive criticism than negative. Do you have any thoughts as to why Lucas sold everything rather than letting someone else take over? My first guess is he wanted to it was at the height of its value, so you want to extract the value from it. He also, I think, was just done with Star Wars. He didn't want to psychically have it as a burden to maintain anymore. That's probably why. I haven't talked to him about it, but if I ever meet him and talk to him about it, I'll let you guys know. Clarifying in hindsight, it's healthy and good to be passionate about stuff, but Disney are obviously malicious. Don't let malicious entities have a beachhead in your passions. Reed David said, I appreciate it. You can get my giant Christmas thing. My Christmas spectacular. Thanks for the Blind Guardian review the other day. You're welcome. Thanks for watching. I love Blind Guardian. I'm going to say this again. I probably didn't emphasize it enough in the video. I have so much respect for Blind Guardian taking a huge risk and doing something that is completely unique, completely different than everything they've done before. Not only different, but it's different than anything else I've heard. Now, it wasn't very good. It wasn't a home run. It was a pop fly out. It didn't end up being a very good album. But I really appreciate that they took the risk and did something original. I have tremendous respect for the originality of that album, even though I don't think it worked. And I don't think it was very good. You get like a double plus good for taking that risk. And I say that, and then like I pooped all over Metallica's Lulu thing they did with Lou Reed because it was simply awful. Sometimes you do something that's really different and it's terrible. Blind Guardian's doing something different wasn't terrible. It just didn't work out very well. It's kind of mediocre it's a mediocre album. J.J. Abrams has a brand which he neglects as he hides behind Disney when people criticize his Star Wars entities. That's not a good tactic, not a good sign for his artistic future. He's not really an artist. Yeah. It's rumored that The Mandalorian might be the story from James Mangold's scrapped Boba Fett movie stretched into a series with names changed to avoid paying George Lucas royalties. So there's this theory going around about having to pay George Lucas royalties, and I don't think that this is rooted in reality. I think it's just because some people don't understand how trademarks work and copyright works. So if it's based on James Mangold's movie, if he wrote a screenplay, then obviously they would have to pay him royalties for using the story. Or really what they do in Hollywood, they don't actually pay you royalties. They buy your script for a lump sum, and then you don't get residuals anymore. Used to be you could work for residuals, you get 1 or 2%. That's part of copyright. Trademark's something different. So George Lucas, when he sold Lucasfilm, it went with all of the trademarks that Lucasfilm owned, which is going to be things like Wookiee, Star Wars, Luke Skywalker. Those are all trademarks, right? If you're using the term Wookiee, people are going to assume that it's official, that it's from Lucasfilm. So therefore, it's a trademark. So I think that theory is bunk. I think it's bunk. And I think them doing things to avoid paying royalties is kind of, I don't think that has a root in reality at all. It doesn't go with the law, and it doesn't go with what Hollywood normally does. It doesn't go with the transfer of a product. They wouldn't have paid $5 billion for the franchise to then not own it. That doesn't make any sense. They would have just licensed it from him to begin with and saved the money. To be fair, most of my colleagues and the customers I've spoken to at the cinema are really not looking forward to the new Star Wars, but they said that they're still going to watch it. There you go. People, it takes so long for a fandom to die. It takes a long time. If somebody is a hardcore fan, they'll probably always be a hardcore fan, even up to the point where they are insulted and told to go away. They'll still be a fan. I'm not sure that Star Wars fans will all just buy any new Star Wars content indiscriminately. TLJ underperformed on home video. Solo flopped, and Return of the Sith might still underperform. Well, if all the fans bought the DVD, it would still be underperform, because you need normies to buy the DVDs too. Not normies is a dumb word. You need people who aren't in that long tail of the fandom too. So I think toy sales are probably the best indicator that the fandom has diminished, because fans will really buy toys. And the fact that the toys are sitting on the shelves rotting just kind of tells you where the priorities of the fans are. They don't like the new movies. So there's definitely a truth to that. There's a famous GIF that shows a reviewer flashing a sign that said something like, "It's a show about space wizards with light swords." It's true. It originally was called a light sword, I think, in the original draft. Could you beat Rian Johnson in a boxing match? I don't know. Probably. It depends what kind of boxing match. I'm not like a trained boxer. I'm probably more athletic than him, but that's not saying that much, right? I've probably been punched more than him. That's probably true. TLJ showed us that fandom is full of people like this, as well as people on the creative team who see Star Wars like this. Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Said the Lightsword people. I think fandom's messing with young people alongside social media is going to make doomers out of a lot of them. Maybe. Let's see here. I missed some stuff here. Sorry, I'm behind on the chat. Whenever I click the chat, it jumps down really far and I have to find my place again. That's just something buggy about the way this works. Let's see here. Shut up, Wesley. Solo wasn't promoted much until the first trailer aired during Super Bowl Sunday. Lack of advertising may have contributed to Solo's low box office. It's true. It could be lots of things. When people hear about a troubled production, they may want to stay away. You upset fans that maybe would go see the movie 2 or 3 times normally. Instead, they see it 0 times or 1 time. It also didn't come out in a prime box office time. Who knows? This is a little bit off topic. I want to have illustrations in my novel, but fear they'll threaten suspense and revelation since many people peruse them before reading a book. I wouldn't worry about it, Christopher. It's a bit like the old Qui-Gon's Noble End that was made known since the OST was released before Episode 1's premiere. Spoilers, he dies, yeah. I wouldn't worry too much about it. You can always direct your illustrator to illustrate things that in a way that don't have big spoilers. I've included illustrations in one of my books. I'd like to include more, and I don't have more simply because it's an expense that I haven't really been able to bear in the past, because I don't sell like huge numbers of books, and so paying hundreds of dollars to an illustrator to do really good illustrations doesn't enhance the value that much until you're like really selling to a lot of people. See, I think I may have had the response you were alluding to. I saw The Force Awakens, and my response simply was, I think I'm done with Star Wars now. I haven't been back. I'm glad. Would being a passive character work as a character flaw? In one of my books, the main character grows up in a dystopia and was indoctrinated into being passive, and he slowly grows. Yes, if he grows out of it and then begins to take initiative, absolutely, that's a great thing. That's kind of... Luke Skywalker is very passive. He's mostly passive until he takes on a more active role at the Death Star. Since we're talking about Star Wars. But there's a million other characters that's the case of. Bilbo starts off very passive and becomes active during the course of The Hobbit. So he's kind of drug along, and he's out of his depth, and then once he gets the ring and saves his friends a couple times, then he starts to really become a grown character, you know. Are you a fan of Philip K. Dick? I am. I wouldn't say I'm a fan. I like Philip K. Dick's stories, and if so, do you like any of the novels they made into movies? Yes. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, I think, is a more interesting story than Blade Runner as a movie. It's kind of weird. I like Blade Runner as a movie a lot too, but the story has a lot of cool stuff in it. There's so much. There's so much good Philip K. Dick stuff. Minority Report is a really good movie that they made out of one of his. You asked, how do you reject content? My strategy is skipping content that will definitely be bad. Like the Rise of Skywalker and Thor 4, and waiting for reviews before buying potentially good content. If you're waiting for reviews, that's good. But, you know, most fans are probably just going to watch it anyway. You get to spend 24 hours with one fictional character. Who would you choose? Mine's Aslan. He'll never disappoint. I don't know. I don't know who I would say. Speaking of Final Fantasy, I'm glad I invested in that when I was younger. It definitely helped me learn to be selective with canon. Never treat fiction like it's real anymore. Do you think too much content hurts fans? Like too much MCU coming? I don't know. So, I don't know. I really don't. I think... So, I think you can force your fandom to be more rabid with certain approaches. And I think the MCU is going to start trying to take this approach, and they kind of have, which is you can't just go see Avengers. You have to see all the movies in the phase before you understand what the hell Avengers is about. They started doing this with comic books in the 90s. Everything was a crossover. You couldn't just read Amazing Spider-Man. You had to read Amazing Spider-Man, and you had to read Venom, and you had to read a bunch of random Captain America issues or something. You had to read every comic book they put out to know what the hell was going on after a while. There's a reason I stopped buying comics in the 90s. It's a terrible approach. It's an approach that will really milk the hardcore fans. It will get a lot of milk out of the hardcore fans. But if a random normie can't pick up a comic book and enjoy the story, he's just going to stop buying comic books, period. So that's the collapse of the comic market. It happened because of that approach to, you know, making too much, not just too much, but making it so that everybody had to consume every product in order to understand it at all. So if they totally go that way with the MCU, I could see it collapsing. I'm not at all excited about the new MCU movies. I think Thor 4 is going to be abysmal just based on the concept, and I think it's going to be very insulting to fans, just as the comic book was. Yeah, real Luke is right where he's supposed to be, on the Jedi Temple throne in his black 6 fatigues in the game Jedi Knight 2. There you go. What are your thoughts on Disney using the same ending in Frozen 2, Toy Story 4, and Ralph Breaks the Internet, where the main characters choose to go their own way? I haven't thought that much about it. So I mean, if I'm thinking deep level stuff, it's that these are children of divorced parents. And so they're expressing some sort of acceptance or approval of divorce. And also rejection and separation of friends, right? So if you grew up in a divorced household and you're very atomized, then your response is like, it's okay that we all go our own way, when really we shouldn't all be going our own way. We should be unified and have big families and good friendships that are deep and last a long time, be part of communities and groups and churches and things. So I don't like them, in general. So I don't know about the ending in Frozen 2. Toy Story 4 was not good. Ralph Breaks the Internet was terrible. It was a terrible movie in general, but especially the ending where it's like, I guess we have to grow apart. It's like, no, that doesn't feel good. People want to have friends forever. And you can, But I think it's maybe because everybody in Hollywood is either divorced, comes from a divorced family, or both. What are your thoughts on the Clone Wars? I like the animated series, the Cell animated one that they had. I enjoy that one, and I think it's pretty good. I don't really like the CG series very much. It's not really for me. It's a little too decompressed. There's definitely good things about it. I don't think I've watched the whole thing because I think I stopped watching it before it was done. But it's okay. The animated one is way more condensed and better, and I think tenser and everything. It would have been a great movie. Without George Lucas, Star Wars is soulless and heartless. There's no point in seeing Disney Star Wars as canon. I agree. Do you think Bethesda will get their act together in time to make the next Elder Scrolls as glorious as the previous ones? Thanks for all the work, brothers. Still love the channel. Thank you very much. I don't know. How a corporation steers its ship. I think... So let's look at Bethesda. So what have they done over the last however many years that's either good or bad? So Skyrim, that was good. They didn't come out with New Vegas. That was, I think, Obsidian. They came out with Elder Scrolls Online, which initially was kind of a flop, but I think has turned into something that is okay. I think it's enjoyable. I mean, I could go back and see myself playing it again. There's a ton of content. It's just doesn't feel like Elder Scrolls. It just feels like another MMO. Just another fantasy MMO. I think my stream is getting interrupted here, so I apologize if it seems like that's the case. I think I'm getting no data for some reason. So we'll wait for that to reconnect. Okay, looks like I'm back. Okay, so Bethesda's done a kind of a misfire that they course corrected, which is Elder Scrolls Online. Then they came out with Fallout 4, which I didn't buy. I didn't buy because it had a dialogue wheel. But by reports of people who are fans of the Fallout franchise, it was a good game. So most people think it's good. They came out with Fallout 76, which has been a really big misstep from them. So they really have had a mixed bag. So I think it could go either way. They could have a good, a good game if they take that into account. And I'll tell you what's going to make or break it is if they try to make it a games as service model in Elder Scrolls, it won't work. And I won't buy it, of course, but it's just that's going to be what's going to make or break it. If they try to stick with current gaming trends, try to incorporate those into it rather than setting the trends, they try to respond to the trends, that's how you know it's in big trouble. When I listened to Blind Guardian, I saw an album for another album called Celestia Alliance Hybrid Generation. Now I want to commission a book cover from their album artist. You can do that. You could commission Karen Byatt. Jesse White, who I think was in the chat, might still be watching. He does album covers too, and they're really good. These artists, you can totally commission them. And when it used to be, I was like, how would I get Howard Lyon to do a cover? It's like, Howard Lyon follows me on Twitter. I could go tweet him and say, dude, I want you to do a book cover. It's like, he does book covers for these really big guys like Brandon Sanderson. It's like, so? Like, what's the difference? You both pay money, both pay American money for it. Earlier, I was more thinking of how Vox Day loves a scrap, and you don't seem to. I enjoy a scrap. Most people don't notice what a jerk I am in the comments. I really tear people apart in the comments if I don't like them. I'm not like Vox admits that he has a little bit of a problem with wrath. He likes a little bit too much to be cruel. He has a cruel streak, and I mean, I'm not going to say it's a flaw of his or something. I think he admits it as such. I don't have that. What I do have, though, is I have some wrath when I feel people are being dishonest with me. Dishonesty does invoke my wrath. And there's a lot of people who are dishonest with comments that are kind of, I don't want to go on a rant on it, but they just kind of filter in and filter out. And the whole point of their comment is they're trying to get people to argue with them so that they can feel like they're a smart boy. And I tend to just tear them apart and ban them, Once you tear them down, they get really upset. And then they usually go away. Bob Iger said in his autobiography that Lucas didn't want to sell, but he talked him into it by convincing him that Star Wars would be in the best possible hands with Disney. Oh boy, I didn't hear that one. I haven't paid attention to Bob Iger's autobiography. Wow, that'd be a big one. There's been a lot of talk about entitled fans. What do you think fans and creators, for that matter, are actually entitled to? So, this is a good one. This is a very good question. Zimemaru. Zimemaru. Okay, hopefully I'm saying that right. I don't know. So what are fans entitled to? Well, they're entitled to get within reasonable expectations a product that they paid money for. So the reason fans didn't like The Last Jedi is they paid money for a product which insulted them. I think it's pretty reasonable. Finish. It's buffering here. Restart the stream and see if that works. All right, now we're back. Okay, I'm gonna restart the stream and see if it works. Okay, sorry about that hiccup. I'm losing. It looks like everybody left, so which happens. It happens. Technology doesn't always work flawlessly all the time. When you realize that you're basically working with magic, you can't get too upset when something doesn't quite work out. You know what I mean? So I missed a ton of little chats here. I was going to say, hey, you guys can watch Jesse's video on beam breaking. So I don't think fans are entitled necessarily. I think they just have expectations. I think the calling fans entitled is not what you want to do. If what I'd say is like, if the fans don't like the way that the direction I take my story, and that's the direction that I feel like I need to take it in, I'm sorry you're disappointed. Did you find my Ike Perlmutter email? I did not. Sorry. I might have missed it somewhere. Off topic, but it is inherently to rely on pathetic protagonist. Travis, I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. Sorry. Indiana Jones was originally supposed to fight the swordsman, but Harrison Ford improvised shooting him instead because he was ill with dysentery and wanted to get the scene over with. That sounds fun. I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that. Is Qui-Gon supposed to represent the ideal further, while Obi-Wan is supposed to be an older brother that's forced to be dad and Palpatine is the abusive father? I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Seeing the charred remains of his aunt and uncle changed Luke quite a bit. It did. That was kind of the impetus to go. It was like the last severing. I have to leave home because I don't have home. Do you prefer television shows with self-contained episodes like the original Star Trek to serialized television with series arcs? You can have both. So you can have both. Deep Space Nine has both. So you can have both. So I do prefer them. Each episode needs to have its own story. And actually, you know, you don't have to have a huge arc, but if somebody misses an episode and comes in later, this is the way he had it on broadcast. For a lot of shows, you couldn't have that because if somebody missed 1 week and they were lost on the next week, they'd be upset about it. You know, even with soap operas, they would kind of, yesterday on the days of our... It's actually quite slow paced. There's a reason I couldn't watch it. Considering it would be, I think there's 12... How many episodes are there in the first season of Game of Thrones? I'm going to ask it. Oh, here we go. I'm back again. Season 1. There's 10. So 10 hours. You could read the book in 10 hours. So, I mean, you're watching it at the speed that you would read a book, which is not usually what you do with a visual presentation. Usually you have an increase in efficiency, significantly so. Do you prefer television shows with Okay, yes. How do you have a setting with multiple stories where each story is accessible to normies or others who've yet to watch the other stuff? I do that. So you can read Water of Awakening. You can read Needle Ash. You can read them in any order. Really, this one's first, this one's second. But you can read them, you know, one after the other or however you want. It's because they're different stories and they have their own plot goals. Now, there's some characters in common. You have Band of the Badgers in both of these, so the mercenary band is present in both of these. When we get to book 3, Helga's going to be in book 3 again, but she's actually not the primary protagonist. She's actually a supporting character, very important character, but the main story is different. So if you were to jump into book 3, you'd still have a story with a clear beginning, middle, and end with its own characters and own character arc and own goals and new characters to do. So every time what I want with this series, with the Eternal Dream series, is every time you pick up a book, there's something new for you. There's a new character that you can like. Rather than say like Wheel of Time where it's the same characters and only once a book you gain like one new character that's kind of a secondary character. It's like I don't like that feeling, and I want each story to have its own life and to have its own goals and its own feelings associated with it. And I want when somebody buys book 3 to feel like they're getting to know new characters and they're getting that joy of discovering them. So that's how I do it with the Eternal Dream series. And it's going to be the same thing with like Crown of Sight. It's the same setting, so the same rule set, same locations, politics going on in the same ways, and it all kind of sketches out the bigger whole. And so when we get to the end of the series, which is going to be much further down the line at this point, but when we get to the end of the Eternal Dream series, I actually have something planned for the end of this series that's really going to be extremely unique. And I don't know if I'll be able to pull it off. Hopefully I will have my skills dialed in to completely world class by then, that I can actually pull off what I've planned. I'm not going to say more than that, other than it's a very grand idea in my head. But anyway, when I get to the end of it, all the details have been pulled in by separately enjoyable books to allow you to move into the kind of the final stages there. I know traditional series, people like to read the same characters over and over again. That's going to be City of Silver. So if you like to have the same characters book after book, that's going to be Moonsong. It's going to be this one. That's going to have the same characters book after book with one continuous story. Why do people still think the Star Wars hate is coming from a small vocal minority when it's the overwhelming majority of fans? I still think it's actually a small vocal minority. But it depends what you consider fans. So if you're thinking of those tail fans, those fans who like buy all the toys, yeah, it's most of them. If you're thinking fans of like the people who generally watch Star Wars, if I think of all my friends, if I go and look at my Facebook list and I look at all the friends, there's going to be like 2 people who didn't like Last Jedi. Everybody liked Last Jedi that I know. I have not met a single person in real life other than maybe people who watch me on YouTube that I've run into like at Home Depot or something, that agree with me that Last Jedi was garbage. or maybe two, or people that I've met, say through the channel somehow. Most people really like it, and the people who hated it really hate it. Because most people just wanted to go and see a really cool Star Wars movie, and they were blown away by Last Jedi because it was so explosive and there was so many surprises and twists, and it just, oh my God, Luke is like this. Like they just really enjoyed the drama of it and didn't approach it like fans. So if you're looking at the normies, like the more normie, the people who've watched Star Wars their whole life and like Star Wars, but don't consider themselves, they don't like collect toys, then it is a vocal minority. It's only the majority if you're looking at those tail fans, those hardcore fans. So I think the hardcore fans might be a majority, but it's easy for the filmmakers to look at it and be like, well, there's 1,000 fans over there who hate us. And it's like, well, that's nobody. It's like, but those 1,000 fans each have like $100,000 Star Wars collection. That's huge, right? 1,000 people who have $100,000 invested in your franchise is a big thing, right? Those fans are higher impact than the people who just saw Last Jedi some random weekend in December and were like, that was cool, posted on it in Facebook and didn't think anything about it. Maybe bought the DVD and didn't watch it. So I know that's a long rant. You're correct, but it's because they're thinking of fans differently than you are. Do you have a morbid curiosity for what will happen in Rise of Skywalker? I do, but not enough that I would pay for it if I didn't feel like lots of people were wanting my opinion. If I feel a need to complete this circle of I hate Force Awakens. Now we're going to go all the way around to the close of the circle. I hate Rise of Skywalker. I'm expecting to hate it. And if honestly, JJ could very easily get me to say positive things about it just by making it less sucky than the other two movies. By any amount. It's kind of like Mandalorian. People are like, Mandalorian's not that great, but it's so much better. It's like, yes, it is. It's like better than the other stuff. So of course, in comparison, it's gonna seem great. Why do people still think the Star Wars? Okay, got that. Someone cut the 2D animated Clone Wars into a movie on YouTube. I think I have it as a DVD somewhere, or I've seen that one on YouTube. Also, someone fan edited many episodes of the 3D into one, a series of 5 compressed movies with the filler cut out. See, I like the sound of that too. Bethesda was trying to silence me because I was saying that Fallout 76 sucks. Do you think that it's accurate to say that Captain America: The Winter Soldier is libertarian in its worldview? I don't think so, but I'd have to watch it again and think about it. I think it was a good movie. I enjoyed it. Will you be posting on BitChute after YouTube D-Day? Yes, I will always be posting on BitChute, even if I get nuked. So if I'm gone for the dark days, first of all, make sure you're on the mailing list, or at least follow me on Twitter. I'm David V. Stewart on Twitter. For sure I'll keep posting on BitChute because there's just, no reason not to. The sequel to the first Frozen 2. All right, I think we're back up. I think more people are coming back around. I like how the refresh circle was right around my eye. Yeah. I don't know what was happening with the internet there. Sierra Games. Let's see here. Grew up with Sierra Games. To this day, I still believe they are the most difficult and satisfying games ever made. Were you into those games? I remember some of them. I didn't play all of them. There was so much, though. We're playing a bunch of them. If you watched the anime Dr. Stone, I haven't. Iger's memoir is an eye-opener. Maybe I'll have to read it. He even talked about how upset Lucas was when he realized that they had bought his outlines without intending to use them, and again when he saw TFA. Maybe I'll read it. I was thinking of writing a short book series about 4 mythical supernatural beings who are brought together and tasked with becoming protective guardians of their home. Would that work? It worked for the Avengers. So yes, it would work. Let's see here. I appreciate your continuing the stream even after the attempts to take you down. I've been downloading the Writestream along with Vox and Owen for the apocalypse. Thank you. I was thinking making them a sorceress, a dragon shifter, a demon, and a pixie. Would those characters blend well together? I think there'd be a lot of conflict between them, which means it'll be fun. You want that drama. That's why, like, I think Dragons of Autumn's Twilight, why the Dragonlance books work, is because the characters are different from each other. There's conflict between them. I mean, like, they just don't get along necessarily. The email that I sent you was about Ike Perlmutter, includes some interesting information from Iger's memoir, among other evidence and information. Okay, I'll try to look for it. I'd hate to have one in the catalog that just ends abruptly. Speaking of, any updates on Writestream 47? Oh, you know, the lecture's up. The question answer stuff is on BitChute. Maybe no, I think I took it off BitChute. I think that one's gone too. It just I'll try to get it up. I've been super busy trying to get these books out. I got another book coming out Friday the 13th of December, so that's occupying a lot of my time and energy to get that out. And then I got to edit the next Moonsong book and get that out. I have, oh my gosh, I have like 6 Moonsong books to edit that I already written. I've got, I have another book related to Eternal Dream that I'm going to put out next year. I have to write and release Eternal Dream 3. I've actually started writing it kind of off and on because I've been so busy. I have like 2 other books I have to edit and release. I have so many books. I have a full queue of editing for next year. I don't know how I'm going to get everything out. I've written way too much stuff that I haven't bothered to put out, and now I need to get it out. Let's see here. Do you think that it's a problem the U.S. filmmaking industry is largely concentrated in Hollywood and New York? Yeah. Would you like to see the rise of local studios across the U.S.? I would. Here's the problem. So the reason it's concentrated is so that all the talent is in one place and all the money is in one place and all of the resources are in one place. That way studios can rent from each other. They can Universal can rent one of Disney's sound studios if they need to. They do that kind of stuff. The writers are all in the same place. They can sell to everybody and meet with everybody in one city. So producers can meet with every actor in one city. It's a physical thing. It's a problem though because it becomes, there's always more people trying to get into the business than there is room in the business. And this is why all the Me Too stuff happens in Hollywood. Why it's like a known thing that people sleep with producers to get jobs. It's a known thing because everybody wants the job. Everybody wants that big break. So that's really the problem. There's a lot of efficiency benefits to it being located in New York. But at the same time, not New York, LA, at the same time, these cities are driving filmmakers out by being too expensive. Ben V says, what are some of the biggest things that made the original Star Wars trilogy scripts great? So I would say it's really the character drama is what made the scripts great. And in fact, a lot of the scripts cut a lot of the world building stuff, especially in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, to just have more character drama. And I think that's why people like them more. Have you seen John Carter? That was the Disney one. I don't think I saw it. I read the book, right? I've read the, Princess of Mars. The John Carter books are by Edgar Rice Burroughs are, I think they're in the public domain. You can just go read them. They're great. It's like the original space opera stuff. What should I focus on for making a love interest for a female protagonist? Think about female fantasies. Just look at the romance genre and you're going to see what traits are going to be in a male that's going to be attractive to a female protagonist. And this is not, I know that romance novels are directed towards female readers, but that's part of it, right? That's kind of how you have a good theory of mind, say, about what women want. So the biggest mistake you could possibly make is to have a female protagonist and present her with a love interest, which is what you think an ideal male is, rather than what she would think an ideal male is. It's part of this theory of mind. So you notice that, like, in lots of romantic comedies, you have writers that write a love triangle with a male that they think is a bad kind of male, like a Chad, and then like a virgin. There's like a virgin and a Chad, and the virgin is the good guy. It's because the people writing it think that the good guy should get the girl at the end because they think they're a good guy, rather than what's actually attractive to a woman. If you're thinking about what's actually attractive to a woman, then you're gonna make a character that's more like Indiana Jones and less like, I don't know, a virgin. So that's that. I'd probably think of like a bad boy to start. So you have a bad boy, she's attracted to him. I mean, like, you could read Twilight for that. You know, Edward from Twilight's a great example. He's kind of a bad boy. He's kind of aloof. He's very, very physically attractive, very competent and smart. And he falls in love with you. You want him to fall in love with you, but at the same time, you think he's a jerk. So you both hate him and love him at the same time, and then you kind of convert him into, a good man. That's kind of the female fantasy. I want to be entertained by The Rise of Skywalker, yet my expectations are very low. I expect it to visually look cool. You said you've written scripts before. Have you ever attempted writing a TV series script? I have. I wrote a sitcom script. It was a pilot. It was just part of our, me and my writing partner kind of, we had a bunch of scripts, and it was just one of them for people to look at, to see our comedy. It's really pretty much impossible to just get a show made. It's executive producers that make shows, not really random writers. So, I've written that. There's a couple different formats. If you get Final Draft, they have a couple of the formats like CBS and stuff. So it's worth your time to look into those formats because they kind of guide how you're going to write. CBS is a 2-act. NBC is a 3-act. I know that sounds weird. You can still write a 3-act story in a 2-act space, but where the commercial breaks land kind of changes your structure. It's kind of different. So CBS series have a different feel than NBC series because you're looking at different arrangements of commercial breaks. What do you think of the theory that superheroes have replaced Westerns as the modern American myth due to collective disillusionment with Wild West myths due to iconoclastic history? Interesting. That's an interesting perspective. I hadn't ever thought of that. I actually think superheroes as an American myth just kind of come down to, I could be that. I was going to say it has to do with secularization because they're basically gods, versus the people who do Westerns are not gods. They're just good men. And I think there's probably some truth to that. If you like, I could also send you an email with some of the most relevant quotes about Lucasfilm's deal with Lucas's disappointment from Iger's memoir. Maybe I'll just read the memoir. How do you respond to people when they say your standards are just too high? This happens to me all the time in regards to Disney Star Wars. So this is a great thing. People are like, your standards are too high. You say you're basically inferring that I'm bad for not eating pig slop, right? The complaint that standards are too high is built into it, a self-referencing thing. If you're complaining that my standards are too high, it's you that should stop eating pig slop and start eating food fit for humans. Not me that should come down and eat pig slop. I'm not bad for not eating what pigs eat. You're bad for eating what pigs eat. Period. That's a common one. It's like, you hate everything. Most of my movie reviews are positive. I like most movies, believe it or not. I really enjoy the format. Even if it's a story I don't like or there's things about it I don't like, I generally enjoy a good presentation. But people really watch. If I come out with 2 movie reviews the same day, one says I like it, one says I hate it. The one that I say hate it, doesn't matter what movie it is. It's going to get 10 times as many views. Negativity gets way more attention. You just say if I had high standards, then I wouldn't like any movies, Do you see the new Joker movie? I didn't see it. So here's the thing. I don't go to the cinema, guys. I can't. I have little babies at home. So for me to go to the cinema is a huge deal. Me and my wife are trying to work out her taking my son to the cinema so that they can have some time together. Not me, because she hasn't been able to go see a movie in theaters. Like, she's gone like to 2 movies since my son was born. And I've gone to like 4. And I only got to go to like those 4 or 5 movies because I knew I would make money making a review of them. Enough to make up for the lost time. Who do you think are some of the most underrated film score composers and film scores in present-day cinema? I'd say that if you want one that's really underrated, it's probably Philip Glass. Philip Glass does very effective film scores. They're very unique. But I think, I don't know. I think a lot of people hate on Hans Zimmer, but he's very good at what he does. He's underrated to people who think that they have their nose up for film scores. He does very memorable and effective scores. They're not my favorite. Like, they're not going to be like Howard Shore or, I don't know. They're not going to be my favorite ones, but they're always really effective and people really remember the music. So Hans Zimmer's probably a good example of underrated. And then sometimes there's just scores that aren't underrated. It's just people don't think about them as much. Like the score to Conan and the Barbarian by, what's his name? Paladin. I can never pronounce his last name. Who wrote it? Basil Polidorus. He does really good scores. I can never say his last name right, so I'm probably saying it wrong. But he does very good scores, and people don't often think about the score to Conan the Barbarian, but it's one of the best film scores ever made. It makes the movie in so many different ways, and it's so iconic. It's such a classic one. I think that modern technology paves the way for decentralization in the film industry. I think so. So I think you can decentralize a lot of talent. CGI, people can work remotely on CGI, on editing, scripts, music. All that stuff can be done. You're completely right, Hardwick. I agree. All that stuff can be done remotely. I get people occasionally that ask me to do scores for short movies or short films, and I usually have to turn them down because I'm just too busy with other things. But they're like, hey, can you do a score for this like short film I did? It's like, I would love to, but I got a baby and I just can't get it done. But that's great. Like, someone in Russia can hire me to do a score for their film. That's amazing. I think it's great. When can we expect episode 2 and 3? Probably this week. Probably tomorrow and Friday, or maybe Friday and Saturday. It depends on how good I feel tomorrow. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving, but we're not having Thanksgiving on Thanksgiving because there's so many. So we're actually doing it Friday. I'm actually toying with the idea of fasting tomorrow, it's just fasting at least when the sun's up, because I think a better way to connect with thankfulness for having food is to fast. From a Christian perspective, you fast because it helps you to not to disconnect from the body, but to recognize that there are things that your body must be below. Your spiritual wellness, your mental wellness is below the needs of your body. Man does not live on food of bread alone, but by every word from the mouth of God. So I may fast tomorrow as just an exercise for my spirit. And I think it's a great way to give thanks, is to, instead of engaging gluttony, to fast. And then Friday we'll have the feast, and I'll have some food. I think superheroes have always been American myths. Yeah. We have American myths like Pecos Bill, basically superhero, Paul Bunyan, So yeah, that's a good point. Can you just remind me how much I love the Conan score? It's so good. Conan score is brilliant. Basil Polidorus? Is it Poulidoris? Poulidoris. I hope I'm saying it right. Yeah, it's great. I mean, it's just such a great score. It's just such a perfect match. The movie is great in so many different ways. It's one of the most underrated movies I can think of. It's perfect for what it is. And I think if it, if you were to put it back in theaters or something today, people just wouldn't know what to do with it. It would be too cool. Like, there's too many great lines in it. But the score is great. Might be interesting in rewatching and reviewing The Rocketeer sometime. Oh yeah, Rocketeer was I loved that movie when I was a kid. I thought it was such a cool movie. I really enjoyed it. Fasting is also good for you as well. Just don't do it every day, then it becomes starvation, which isn't good for you. Well, I don't know. There's different approaches to fasting. So if you're going with the orthodox fasting schedule, it's not, you fast from certain things. So you're basically vegan on Wednesdays. You don't eat meat or oil or fish on Wednesdays or Fridays. If you're, and this is fasting is optional. It's not something you have to do. It's not like you need to do it. And then there's a long fast leading up to Christmas. So the Advent fast involves increasing reduction of certain kinds of things. So no meat, oil only on certain days of the week. So basically you're living a vegan lifestyle for like 5 weeks, which can be hard. So there's different approaches to fasting versus just not eating. So when, if I'm really trying to cut weight, I'll usually, or maintain like a low body fat, I'll usually use intermittent fasting to some level. It's just like skipping breakfast. It just cuts down on the amount you eat. When I first started using fasting as like a diet thing, it's like I never dieted before. Like I'd been at about 215 pounds for like a year, and I was really fit. And then I changed my diet up. I changed everything up and started really hard, like doing intermittent fasting. It's like, boom, I went down to like 195, just completely shredded. First time I got under 200 pounds, I was like shocked. And it was really good for looking good. It's like my peak good looks. There's a DVD of Basil conducting the Conan score live in Spain. Ooh, with the movie being played above it. It's wonderful. Just before he died. I had to buy it from Spain. I'll have to check it out. Are you familiar with Don Bluth? Yes, his cartoons. Didn't he do a bunch of cartoons? I'm gonna Google him to make sure. I'm not talking out my. Yeah, he did those cartoons that were cool. I remember all these cartoons. Yeah, I like these. Yeah, a lot of them are great. He did some, Titan AE was actually a really cool cartoon that like no one paid attention to. What a cool movie. I fast on Yom Kippur. I don't fast otherwise, and have digestive issues with fasting. Fasting can mess with. Yeah, the Orthodox approach, like if it's not, and I'm not an Orthodox Christian, but I like the approach to fasting. Obviously, if you have a health ailment that prevents you from doing it, you shouldn't do it. The point is it's for you. You're fasting to improve yourself, not because God requires you to fast, or he's like there's some law requiring you to fast to gain something from heaven. No, it's to draw you closer. The vegans are in a permanent state of penance for some perceived sin. The sin of eating meat. I think a big problem with the vegan mindset is they don't understand reciprocity as far as ethical reciprocity. So they're like, it's wrong to eat meat. Well, the wolf doesn't think so. Why is it okay for a wolf to eat other animals but not you? Oh, because we're more enlightened than the wolf is. It's like, how does that doesn't change anything about the biological reality that you're a meat-eating being. You're made to eat other animals. It's like a bear can eat berries, but he mostly lives on salmon and whatever else he kills and eats. The bear feels no guilt for killing and eating because that is in his nature to do so. Just as it's in our nature to hunt and to eat whatever we are going to hunt and eat. I refuse to eat bugs. Okay, guys. We're starting to run out of time. So, according to Jack Kirby, mythical gods are mere super beings rather than the deities to the modern audience. And that his god characters are made according to this non-deity concept. That makes sense because that's Thor, Whereas, I don't know, in a true pagan sense, gods aren't coming down amongst you. They are something that you are having reverence and interaction towards. I used fasting once per week on the Yo Elliott weight training program. It was interesting. Elliott, he's an interesting YouTuber. He's all over the place. He certainly will have a lot of interesting information, though. He had some great advice for like how to work out when you don't have weights available. Just like how to make the most out of body weight stuff. It was pretty useful for me for a while because I just couldn't get to the gym. The worst are those who want to make their pet cats vegan. Yeah, I've seen that. Making an obligatory carnivore vegan is super kind and enlightened until the cat dies. Yeah, we are as we are. We can... they don't see that there's this thing where like the cat doesn't sit there and opine about the tragedy of having to kill a bird to eat. It's only the human that does that. So it's almost unnatural. It's not completely unnatural to sit around and think about it because you have a theory of mind. I have a mind, and therefore this bird might have a mind too. But at the same time, it's like, but the bird, the cat doesn't really consider that the bird has a mind. No, we're the only beings that have a theory of mind. What are your thoughts on the Temple of Doom and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull? So the Temple of Doom is completely ridiculous and awful. And it's bad not because of its tone. Everyone objects to its tone being too dark. The tone is too dark. But it's full of really stupid things. There's this like riotous beat 'em up in some speakeasy at the beginning. And he survives dropping out of a plane by blowing up a raft. It's so stupid. Like most of the stunts in Indiana Jones are just completely farcical and ridiculous. In that one, at least. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was just an example of bad. It was just a really bad script. It's a bad script, badly done, with tons of CGI that looked bad. Like a little CGI gopher. Likewise, they did stupid stuff, like him surviving a nuclear blast in a refrigerator. It's the same idea. There's a line between what's impressive and amazing and what's completely implausible. They had the same thing in the Hobbit movies where Legolas was jumping on the heads of the dwarves, like barrel to barrel, shooting orcs with his bow. And it's like, this is completely stupid. It's completely retarded. No one could believe that Legolas would do that. It's like, but he jumped up on the elephant and shot it in the brain in the last movie. It's like, yeah, that was really impressive. So him jumping on an elephant and shooting it in the brain was like, whoa, that was cool. It's a completely different level to jump on the heads of dwarves floating down barrels through a speeding river while accurately hitting orcs. I'm trying to compare it to something. It would be like the difference between a toddler crawling and like an Olympic pole vaulter pole vaulting into the stratosphere and blowing up a Tyrannosaurus with a bazooka. It's far beyond the pale. When it comes to spiritual exercises, I think the biblical feasts, Passover, Sukkot, etc., are very helpful. It's essentially an annual cycle of spiritual renewal. They can be, yeah, for sure. I think Passover has a very specific spiritual meaning, and there's a lot to gain from that. And I think, at least, it's great annually, too, to have an annual cycle, because then you're always, at least once a year, you're reminded of something that is important. So, like, Passover reminds you of, like, both the commitment of God to the people of Israel in bringing them out of Egypt, but also his mercy in not killing them, that they were spared. They were passed over. So it reminds you of those two things. So at least once a year, you're reminded of some very important spiritual event. In my country, it's illegal to make your cat go to a vegan diet. That became a big deal when that was passed. Do you find the lack of film grain in many modern digitally shot movies distracting? I actually don't. I don't mind missing film grain. I don't. However, I'm going to say something weird. So there was a film grain effect that you could turn on in Mass Effect, in the original Mass Effect game. And it was missing from Mass Effect 2. And I missed it. And when I put on Mass Effect 2, I'm like, this looks way too shiny and fake. Somehow having that film grain in the original Mass Effect it was just like a mood thing. It was perfect. I don't really miss it in movies because I think, I don't know. I just don't really miss it in movies, but I definitely missed it in that game. I'm sure you're aware, but the annual cycle of spiritual renewal is the reason for the liturgical calendar in the Orthodox Catholic traditions. Absolutely. Do you think that superhero movies with dark, gritty tones and slow burn pacing, like Logan, tend to get overrated and praised as being deeper than they are? I don't know. I haven't seen Logan, so I'm not sure. I think Dark Knight, as an example, is one that it's easy to say it's overrated, but it's a really good movie. So I think for people who really like superhero movies, it was like the best movie they'd seen, but it's like the best in the genre. Right, so if it's the best in the genre, yeah, there might be better movies than Dark Knight, but that doesn't mean that Dark Knight isn't anything less than a really good movie, So I don't know. I'd have to watch Logan to see if there's a trend there. I think people sometimes. I think Watchmen was way overrated. I didn't think it was a very good movie actually. I never saw Wild Thing sorry for itself. A small bird will drop frozen dead from a bow without ever having felt sorry for itself. It's from D.H. Lawrence. It's true. We're the only animals that sit around and contemplate this kind of stuff. Sit around and cry at the rain. You know what my dog does at the rain? I don't want to go outside today. It's raining. I want to pee on the floor. It's like, no, you're going outside. What are your thoughts on the first two Christopher Reeve Superman movies? I enjoy them. I used to really love watching those two. I have no memory of number 3 or 4. I just don't remember them. I saw them. I don't remember them. Sorry if you already answered this, but what would be the best way to create a rise of tension between characters without it seeming unjustified or out of place? To set it up early. I'd set it up with their first interaction so that there's automatically tension there. Like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, where it's like the first time they meet, it's like a boxing match. That's how you're really going to get it. And then you can just crank it up and play with it from there. But if you want it to rise up out of nowhere, you have to have some seeds early. I think it's best to sow the seeds at the beginning. Chamber Hawking. Fandoms are gay and there are no exceptions. This is the truth no one wants to accept. I said that in much kinder terms. And again, this is my loving way of saying it is fans just want to have fun. And you either go into any of this knowing that, or you go into it blissfully unaware of that. And you're going to pay the price. So when I do these negative reviews of Mandalorian, because I have to be negative because they're not that good, I know that people are going to be upset about them. That's the reality. But they may also amplify the content by hating me. The Dark Knight is a phenomenal script, but not a perfect film. Watch the underground chase in the middle of the movie. It lacks continuity. It's an incoherent mess. I don't really remember that, but I believe that, Nothing's perfect. Like, you're never going to get it to your screen and not have something that you would rather do a little bit better. I think that's reality. Do Hammer to Fall by Queen and Immigrant Song by Led Zeppelin count as heavy metal? I don't know. I think you can make. I think so. I think you make the point. They count as heavy metal. Why not? I wouldn't call either of those metal bands though. It's a metal tune by a rock band. Logan was improved by conversion to black and white. I think I'm one of the few people who didn't mind Crystal Skull. What are your you might be. What are your thoughts on Gone with the Wind? I liked it, but I haven't seen it in years. Is it odd that the rain puts me in a good mood? No, it puts me in a great mood. I love the rain. It's raining right now. Love it. It's my favorite thing. Were you disappointed by Death Stranding? I haven't played it. I haven't played any games in like weeks at this point. I've been so iron focused on my work since the beginning of November that I haven't done anything fun whatsoever. Other than I think I played Final Fantasy 12 with my son. Or, not Final Fantasy 12. Was that the one? No. I think I played Dragon Quest 11 with my son for like a couple hours because we had some time to kill. That was the fun thing I did. You mentioned in your review of Mandalorian that Star Trek is one of the few TV shows you like. Which of the Star Trek shows do you like? I like all of them to different degrees. I really do. And I like Enterprise. People hated Enterprise, and they really didn't like... Fans really hated this temporal Cold War thing, and I really liked it. I thought it was really original and cool. But I like it when they do different stuff. So I've liked all of the series, but I haven't watched Discovery. Discovery's hidden behind a paywall. I'm just not willing to watch it. Death Stranding or Outer Worlds? I only want to buy one game this season. I don't know. Nothing beats the sudden shift to dark than the end of the Golden Arc, though. Oh, yes! Berserk. Oh, my God. That was such a shock. We're like, what? It just... And then it doesn't really come out of nowhere. It's kind of been set up. Jesse says, I haven't done anything fun for as long as I can remember. Totally. I feel this totally. It's just, I've been so iron focused on trying to get my work done. I just... and it's like I have a routine. It's like I put the kids to bed. I go work out or run. Come back. I work until 1 a.m. I go to sleep for 6 hours. I wake up. I do it again, If my daughter's sleeping and my son can... I'm like, dude, you can play video games for 30 minutes. I got to write. I got to get some work done. I've been so focused on what I'm doing. And I have to get on top of my ball. I have too many books I haven't published. And I have more that I need to write. I guess I'm in the minority that I like Mandalorian, and I'm happy to hear your take and why you didn't appreciate different opinions. Did you see the second trailer for... Most people are respectful that are already with me, but I'm expecting more people to filter in being annoyed that I don't like it. So, my first video was just called, Analysis of The Mandalorian. I'm going to have a video that's like, The Mandalorian sucks, and you suck for liking it, or something. And then that's going to get tons of attention. And I'm walking into the bee's nest, but I'm wearing protective gear, You walk into the bee's nest when you say something sucks, especially in the title of a video. So if you want to get attention and you think Mandalorian sucks, you're gonna make a video that's like, Mandalorian is an insult to fans. That's the name of the video. Mandalorian sucks. More bad fan fiction from Disney. Baby Yoda breaks the lore. Why Mandalorian sucks. All that stuff. Did you see the second trailer for Cats? Nope. The Taylor Swift cat even shimmies with realistic Taylor Swift jiggle physics. Oh boy. What are your thoughts on The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells? I don't remember the book. I just remember watching a movie. I think I read the book like 20 years ago. But I remember the movie a lot more, and it really creeped me out. Why bring such evil to this sacred place? Cats. I don't want to talk about Cats, man. I hated the musical Cats. I saw it, and I've seen Cats like 2 or 3 times. Because, I saw it as a kid. My parents were like, we're going to take you to this Broadway play. And it was Cats. I'm like, what the hell am I watching, Mom? This is gross and stupid. I hated Cats. And then somehow I ended up going to it again. There was like a school, we're like on a band trip. It's like, we got everybody tickets to Cats. I'm like, oh no. I'm just like, it's so boring and stupid and disconnected, and there's no story. And the music isn't even good. I don't like Cats. Did you ever get a chance to play Red Dead Redemption 2? Nope. The way I look at it is like I have a queue of games, and I don't get to buy more games until I finish that queue. And so I got to finish a bunch of games first before I buy any more games, including, I haven't even unwrapped it, guys. People are like, you gotta play. I got Persona 5 here. I haven't even unwrapped it. It's still in the shrink wrap. Really want Conan the Usurper. I'd rather read this than like watch most movies. It's funny how Weber made the worst musical and the best musical, Phantom. I don't like Phantom of the Opera either, man. Phantom of the Opera is really boring, and I find the music very boring. I'm not a big fan of Andrew Lloyd Webber. We know you were a Broadway fan under all the talk of gallant music and Baroque counterpoint. I don't hate Broadway. I don't usually like the music, man. I don't know. It's so awkward to me to have people sitting there talking dramatically, and then the music starts up and they start singing and like dancing. I'm just like, oh, it's production. I just don't. I feel like a pathos towards people on stage when I'm like watching I've seen a bunch of Broadway musicals, by the way. You know, I don't know why. Just people like them. I kind of want to see Book of Mormon because I think that would be, I like Trey and Matt. I like their stuff. It's funny. But I don't know. I feel a pathos towards anyone having to dance on stage as part of a musical. Probably because I've had to do it. I don't want to talk about my past. How about the trailer for Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford? I haven't seen it. I don't watch trailers either, man. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll do a video on it. I've had to watch the Cats trailer way too many times at work. Oh no, it looks stupid and freaky as ever. The cat makeup just looks really gross to me. And it looked gross. So Okay. I have this memory of seeing Cats as a kid. Cats the musical. Did we drive to LA to see it? I don't remember. And this guy singing the Rum Tum Tiger song had like a dance belt and like was clearly like packing it, as a kid. So he had this giant jiggly dick like swinging about as he was dancing. And I was like close enough to see this packed dance belt like jiggling about. I'm like, as a kid. And my mom noticed it too, and she said something about it to me. I was like 9 or 10. I can't imagine being more embarrassed than having my mom say like, I don't think that's his real penis. Oh God. Why do you have to make me remember these things? And she's like, that's not his real penis or something. And it was just like, she pointed out this jiggling package, and I was just like, I don't want to look at this. This is gay and gross. Tell that to a 10-year-old kid. That dance belt scarred me for life. Now that you have a free Disney Plus subscription, you might use it to watch and review some Disney classics. True. I already have them all on DVD for the most part, though, man. It might be good to review the original whenever a remake comes out. That's a very good idea, though. You would do a stream entirely devoted to how awesome Conan is. I would have Jesse on. I'd have Polymath on because we're both huge Conan fans. He's done a bunch of videos on like Savage Sword of Conan. Sure, comics by who did? Was it just? I'm trying to remember if it was always him or not. Anyway, he's done a bunch on Savage Sword of Conan, which is good. And I like Savage Sword of Conan comics, and even there's like the early 70s Conan comics where Conan looks kind of, he doesn't look as much like Conan as when John Buscema takes over. And John Buscema kind of retcons Conan. It's the right Conan. I enjoy the 1925 silent film Phantom of the Opera. And that's empty. I saw Paul Stanley perform Phantom and was actually enjoyable. The new movie of Color Out of Space is directed by the director of Marlon Brando version of The Island of Dr. Moreau. That's the one I'm remembering. Yeah. Oh, it creeped me out. Closest I can get to a musical is David Bowie in Labyrinth. I reviewed Labyrinth and it doesn't hold up. The music's not good. David Bowie's creepy and weird. It's good, and there's lots of good things about it, but it's just not a very good movie. This cat was not fixed. Yeah. What do you think of Wes Anderson? I'm going to Google Wes Anderson because I'm having trouble thinking of who that is. Let's see who he did. I don't know if I've ever seen any of his movies. What movies did he do? Let's see here. Oh, Rushmore. I didn't like it. Royal Tenenbaums. Did not like it. Life Aquatic. Hated it. Squid and the Whale. One of the worst movies I've ever seen. The Darjeeling. Why have I seen so many fantastic? All of these were bad. I hate his movies. Yeah, I hate his movies. In general. I wanted to see Isle of Dogs because it just looked weird. But Squid and the Whale, which he produced, was absolutely terrible. It's one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Yeah, I don't like his movies. Boo. No me gusta. Free these hands and I will varnish this floor with your brains is my favorite Conan line. I love that one. I was born on the battlefield. The first sound I heard was a scream. After watching a ballet movie for the first time, I came to the conclusion that only women should wear tights unless there are Superman-style briefs to go with them. Jump Magic Jump from Labyrinth is so wrong. And there's he has this weird dance that he does with it. It's it just doesn't work. Years later, it just, I have a nostalgia for the puppets, but I watched it again and I was like, man, this just isn't really very good. I got a lot of people upset that I said that. You got to step away from the nostalgia and just, view it objectively. I have nostalgia for lots of things that suck, and I'm aware. I don't think the early Morbid Angel albums are that good, but I do have a lot of nostalgia for them because they were totally unique at the time. You really should see Book of Mormon. I'll try. I've had a couple opportunities, but not the money, or just the ability to do it. Sometimes get Paul Thomas Anderson, Paul W.S. Anderson, and Wes Anderson mixed up. Do you believe there really are a ton of Satanists in Hollywood that just want to destroy art, fandoms, and culture? So it depends what you mean by Satanist. So I think they're nihilists. They're secular nihilists, which is different than Satan. Satanists are, to me, much more, it's an inversion thing. It's about inverting values. So they do satanic things, but they also just don't believe in values at all, which is more nihilistic. So there's a difference between them. So Satanism is merely an inversion, but nihilism is thinking there's no standards and anything goes. It's just kind of helter-skelter. It's all aesthetic preferences. I don't know. I think you certainly see satanic themes. Have you read the Battle Angel Alita manga? Oh, it's called Gundam. I've read some of it. Yeah, it's good. But I haven't read enough of it to really do any kind of comment on it. Tons of nostalgia for the old G.I. Joe cartoon, but the show hasn't aged well. Yeah. Crom! I've never prayed to you before. I have no tongue for it. No one, not even you, will remember if we were good men or bad, why we fought, or why we died. All that matters is that today, 2 stood against many. That's what's important. Valor pleases you, Crom. So grant me this one request. Grant me revenge. And if you do not listen, then to hell with you. All right, guys, I need to pack it up. It's after 8, and I'm actually getting over a cold. That's why I'm coughing so much. Mostly over it. Better. So I should be better for recording for the weekend and doing that kind of stuff. Thanks for hanging out, even though the stream was kind of up and down. I think I've got a thunderstorm going on. That might be part of the problem. So I really apologize for that. Please do check out my new book. I'm very excited to release it. It's the most unique product that I've done, which is called Eyes in the Wall. And it's unique in a couple of different ways. Mainly, it's unique in the narrative style I use. It's unique in the prose style that I use. It is a story style that I think is very different from what people are used to normally seeing out of me. And it has some very interesting messages as well. It's got a great descent into madness. Also, be sure to be on my mailing list. Unfortunately, I couldn't get a product page up in time. This is the Fantasy Christmas Spectacular. It's basically all my books so far in one giant volume. It's going to be really big and really cheap, but it's going to have every book in it. So you can get it. It's going to be gone after December. So when December's done, this book, you can only get it on eBay after that. Okay. So if you want to buy all my books at once, you can buy this beautiful red and green Christmas Spectacular Dragon book. Buy it, give it to a friend. It has all my books in it, and enjoy it. It will be an ebook, so if you're looking to just get a deal and get everything for cheap, that will be a great way to just get all of the stories thus far. And I'll probably do another one next year. And next year, I kind of want to do a Christmas, maybe just like a Christmas special book that has some other authors in it, and we'll figure out something to do with it. And we'll call it Fantasy Christmas Special 2020. But this is Fantasy Christmas Special 2019, exclusively my stuff. So be on my mailing list so you can be appraised if you're interested in that. And of course, make sure you're on my mailing list, dbspress.com/list, if you want to have an advanced copy or whatever of Eyes in the Wall. I'd really like to have people check it out. Okay. So anyway, thanks for hanging out. I hope you guys have a happy Thanksgiving, and I'll look for your email, Hardwick, and I'll see you guys next time. It's a great way to end the stream. I will see you guys next time. I do appreciate it, and hope you guys have a great one. Later.